High-rise flats present unique social and practical problems for local authority housing managers and councillors alike. The task of bringing up to date the standards of comfort in many of them is a daunting one, yet it is a task being faced by a large number of councils throughout Scotland. Most of these flats are of high-density concrete construction. When built, they were heated by off-peak electric heating in the main living areas, and for a number of years the heating systems operated successfully. Tenants found their running costs more than acceptable. The early 70s, however, saw a dramatic and rapid rise in electricity prices, created by the oil price explosion of that time. More and more tenants couldn't afford to run their electric heating. The result? Many tenants stopped using their installed heating system altogether. Others used their living room heating only. In flats where tenants and their families were out most of the day, heating was limited to a few hours in the evening. In this way, a vicious circle was created. Direct-acting electric fires were used instead of storage heaters. The bills for this type of heating were high, and consequently many tenants turned to alternative sources of heating, such as paraffin or bottled gas, not because these alternatives were cheaper in themselves than electricity, but rather because these fuels could be bought as they were used. This alternative, seen by many tenants as the answer to their individual needs, has led to what might well be termed the modern-day scourge of local authority housing: condensation. Without adequately high minimum temperatures in the flats, the high water vapor content of these alternative fuels condenses on walls, furniture, carpets and clothing. Hence the much publicized complaints from tenants and the need for action. In parallel to this very real physical problem, there has been a growing demand among tenants for improved comfort and amenity in their council houses. Though far from unique, Glasgow District Council, in terms of scale, has a huge number of these flats, plus a commitment to give their tenants the best in comfort which budget permits. Glasgow District Council were only too aware of the problems faced both by themselves and their tenants, but found a practical solution difficult to determine, which would be acceptable to their tenants and viable within their budget limitations. Glasgow District Council and all of you are only too aware of the anti-electric feelings so stridently and widely expressed until a few short years ago, and still heard in some quarters today. The SDD report of 1981 on condensation equated this nightmare problem with electric heating's high cost, though they did admit that it was not unreasonable to project a similar scenario for those houses currently heated by gas, in the light of the series of sharp price increases in that fuel over the last few years.
We've been having a huge and growing problem of dampness in our council housing stock. In fact, our expenditure on dampness-related problems has almost doubled every year for the last 3 years. We're up to something like £34 million a year on dampness-related problems. In lots of ways, what we've been doing is treating the symptoms. We've been adding insulation, which is an important thing, but we've also been paying people compensation for the fact that they couldn't use some of their rooms. We've been paying people compensation for the fact that some of their belongings, some of their furniture was destroyed by mould growth and so on. We've been treating mould growth, which is essentially just a symptom of a dampness problem. And it's very clear from the statistics that are available about this problem that it's grown proportionately with increases in fuel prices and the difficulty of people to cope with that. So we tried to think of different ways in which we could, A, encourage people to use the systems that were there, and thus avoid the use of paraffin, which merely increased our dampness problems, so reduce the expenditure on the symptoms of the problem.
It has been our responsibility in SSEB to sell, and I use the word advisedly, the fact that the gap in running costs between gas and electricity is narrowing. Indeed, as you can see in this illustration, for those homes with an annual consumption of 12,000 kilowatt hours, electricity is the cheaper. Significantly, this load equates to a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, and most of your housing has a demand below this figure. Recent objective analysis by the Energy Efficiency Office in their annual cost publication, A Guide to Home Heating Costs, confirms our figures, while that bastion of consumerism, Which magazine, in their feature last winter on home heating costs, again confirmed our calculations. It was in this climate of new confidence that we worked with Glasgow District Council in the creation of their Heat with Rent scheme. In a very real sense, the scheme was a joint initiative from the outset. From the District Council, there was a firm commitment to improve and protect their tenants' homes. From SSEB, the promise was that today's electric heating with white meter held the answer. Jointly, the District Council Heat with Rent scheme was set for a test run in a triple block of high-rise flats at Maryhill in the north of Glasgow. Glasgow District Council have implemented a large-scale external cladding insulation scheme in their high-rise blocks, for which they are to be complemented. In SSEB, we have long advocated and encouraged adequate home insulation as a worthwhile investment in economy, now and into the future. The blend of a well-insulated house and today's electric heating with white meter is now a proven winner. The 3 insulated blocks at Maryhill were selected by the District Council as being typical of the type of housing and mix of tenants for which they were seeking a solution. In effect, there are 2 sectors to their monthly electricity budget. Their heating costs, which will be included in their rent, plus their general electricity usage for which they pay in the normal way. The normal way, yes, but with a significant difference. With white meter, all other electricity they use during those 8.5 hours overnight is charged at the cheap rate. Their fridge, lighting, TV, washing machine and cooker all operate on less than half price for 8.5 hours every night. And with a simple-to-use automatic water heater controller, tenants can make sure that they get a tank of hot water for their daytime needs, again at half price overnight. Now we had a scheme whose merits we both accepted. The elected council gave the scheme their approval, and then the real work began. At SSEB, we rightly accepted as our responsibility the job of selling the new scheme to Maryhill tenants. They are our customers as well as Glasgow District Council tenants. We planned our strategy and set out to implement it. Over a period of 4 weeks, each tenant received a letter from the council accompanied by an SSEB sales leaflet spelling out the details and benefits of the scheme. A show flat was established in one of the blocks and invitations extended to each family to come along and learn more of the scheme. The show flat was manned by our sales staff plus a representative from Glasgow District Council. In an informal atmosphere, the tenants had the opportunity of airing their misgivings and hopefully having those misgivings laid to rest. They saw for themselves the slim good looks of today's electric storage heaters. They heard of their improved efficiency. They saw the simplicity and ease of installation to allay any fears over unnecessary mess and disruption. They learned about white meter and its radical differences from the old off-peak tariffs to which they were accustomed and of which they were somewhat disillusioned. In addition, video films of tenants who are living with white meter and today's electric heating were shown to endorse our sales staff messages.
So I think in 12 years you can say from £2 to to £6 is a vast saving on what you would have if we still had an ordinary night storage heating system and just using hot water at the ordinary rates. So
Those tenants who did not call at the show flat were visited one by one in their homes by sales staff to find out their views and hopefully convert them to a yes vote for the Heat with Rent scheme. By the end of the 4-week period, the returns indicated a 74% yes vote for the scheme. Some typical reactions to the new scheme included:
more faith in the new heating than what I do in the old heating, I would say so.
Good.
We'll put on a fire and have the glow just to take the sort of black look of it. But I don't think, in fact, I'm almost sure we'll not need to put on a bar.
No.
Quite sure.
When you get up in the morning, it used to be the ice was in the window and
Oh,
that
yes.
froze in the morning.
So you're really
But you
looking
won't
forward
really
to it?
get, yes, you won't get that terrible chilling in the morning when you get up.
As long as it stays within that price range, and it's always going to be heat with rent, and it's not going to be included in your sort of electricity bill, and you're not going to end up paying it, it's not going to keep going up every year and every year. If it remains a set amount, and you know that you're getting heating in all your rooms for that amount of money, that's all right.
Paul Magnoni had these further comments to make.
Well, there's two things about the Heating with Rent scheme. First of all, it's a partnership. It's a partnership between us and our tenants, where we've been able to use our muscle as a local authority, our purchasing power as a local authority, to resolve some of their individual heating problems, which they may not be able to have done themselves. And secondly, it's a partnership between us and the fuel board. I think that we can usefully build on that partnership. We can go forward from here with more Heating with Rent schemes, not only in electrically heated schemes, but also in other forms of heating across the city.
In our discussions with tenants, we made it clear that we'd be in touch with them after the scheme had been introduced, to check that they were happy with their new heating and with white meter. This after-sales service is a key element in our marketing effort. And for your information, these are a few brief comments from other tenants who spoke to us during various after-sales service visits in other SSEB areas, and who have enjoyed the new comfort and value of today's electric heating with white meter for more than a year.
And this has certainly been a big improvement on it. And although we were told that the price wouldn't necessarily be cheaper, it has in fact been cheaper than a previous method of heating, and also the house has been much warmer.
I think, quite honestly, at this present moment in time, it's the best possible heating you could possibly want, and the cheapest one.
Well, I find that it's a lot cheaper than when before we used to use the ceiling heating. It's a lot cheaper than that, and it is cheaper than using the fire all day. It's much cheaper.
Bailey Jim McLean of Glasgow District Council has kept a watching brief on this test scheme and gave us his comments on the benefits of the scheme to the council and to their tenants.
We have certainly had full consultation with the tenants, and we've had a good response from the tenants. We've also invited the Glasgow Council of Tenants Associations to go along and see this particular scheme. We've also had a good response from them. They think it's a very worthwhile scheme. It gives a lot of benefits to the tenants, and certainly has a lot of benefits if we can reduce the bill that we have on dampness-related matters. It must give the council a number of financial benefits. We ourselves as a council seen it as a great benefit to us as a landlord in regard to the safeguard to the fabric of these particular properties. We are now considering developing it on another 15 high-rise properties who are suffering from dampness-related problems caused by heat poverty. And we feel that the white meter tariff, landlord-controlled, could be the answer in areas such as Darnley, and indeed any other traditional type housing that we have identified as difficulty heat housing.
Such was the success of this test campaign that already work is in hand to extend the scheme into other suitable locations within the Glasgow District Council area. The SSEB viewpoint on the scheme is well summed up by Derek Simpson, the Glasgow Clyde area manager.
At SSEB, we've been trying very hard for a number of years to convince Glasgow District Council of the benefits to them as a council and to their tenants of today's electric heating with white meter. It has been no easy task. The new Heat with Rent scheme at Mary Hill is just the opportunity we've been waiting for, and we were delighted to cooperate fully with the council in devising this exciting new venture. Now that the test campaign is completed, we are looking forward to expanding the concept into other suitable Glasgow District Council projects where modern electric heating can offer so much in terms of increased comfort at an acceptable cost and provide protection for the fabric of Glasgow District Council housing stock. In this venture, nobody is the loser.
Heat with Rent is an inherently flexible scheme where both council and tenants can reap the dividends. We'll be happy to discuss how best it might be adapted to meet your special needs after this presentation.